welcome to another Played Out, Weighed Out. So it's Sunday, so we're back again. Today we have a special guest with us again, Jerry Haskew. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here, Jesse.
And as usual, thank you. And as usual, we have Kevin remote. And, we suffered a disappointing loss, 38-14. Led by the Florida Gators, led by Emory Jones, had over 144 yards, or actually 144 yards rushing, over 200 yards passing. Pretty impressive to 14. Jerry, let's think. We're going to try to stay positive on the first out. Is there anything that you liked in the game that you saw last night?
Yeah, I liked Hendon Hooker's two good deep balls. I thought that was, well, obviously, kept us from being shut out probably. But I think if you look, we had more yards than they did in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. In the second half, I think we didn't get 100 yards. I may be wrong, but I don't think we did.
I wish I could tell you, but I don't know. Kevin, do you know the answer to that? Number one. Number two, what did you really like about the was there anything that you really liked about the game last night?
Well, I don't know the answer to the question top hand, but I will say this. I tried to be very positive in my outlook. And so I did see a lot of positive things in the game. I've lived in negativity now, it seems, since 2007. So I'm going to try to find the positives here. What I did see was I saw an offensive coach, a game planner who knows how to scheme people open. And I think that's very important to note because, as Jerry mentioned before the show started about the recruiting rankings, how he builds this roster and gets this roster to where it needs to be is going to be very important because I firmly believe he's one of the top offensive coaches in the country, and he's proven that already.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what really jumped out at me. Y'all have heard me talk about all year with the where am I at? Right here. Okay, anyways. The defensive side of the ball. I've been very impressed with the defensive side.
I love Tyler Barron. I hope he doesn't have a bad injury.
Oh, thank you. Number 9? Yeah.
Tyler Barron's, to me, Kevin, if you want to talk about positives, he's a beast. And
he is.
He bothered him all night long until he got his leg hurt. I don't know how bad that was. He was in a boot, I think, toward the end of the game.
Okay. But right, that's what I'm saying. On the defensive side of the ball, it was just really impressive. The fact that now, in reality, the thing I do like about Dan Mullen is he's kind of, in my opinion, he has a modern day view of offense, but he has old school principles because he held on to the ball. He did that against Alabama last week, and this week he held on the ball. I think they had twice as much time of possession in the first half, and even though we were up, I did know that was going to be problematic for us because they were really going to start pounding the ball the second half, and that's what they did.
You know, as Kevin knows, and you know, one of our main issues is depth. We don't have any real quality depth. And I think we got worn down as the game went along.
Right.
And that's a good football team, man. I'm telling you. Here we are. We have to play. We're probably the only team in the country that plays Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Mm-hmm. I would bet that's probably true. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what can you say? I mean, you're going to get – I thought we were competitive in the first half.
Very much so.
And for a beginning of the third quarter, I thought we were competitive. But when you have Emory Jones, and I didn't like that guy much at all, and I was surprised that they didn't bring this other stud in there, whatever his name is. And Richardson? Is that his name? Anthony Richardson. Well, this guy really proved himself to me. I mean, he threw some great balls. Mm-hmm. I was wondering about his passing. But, you know, we just got worn down, and their guys finally started getting open, and just be a step late here, a step late there.
Right.
But I thought we were going to get blown out. I wouldn't say we were blown out.
I definitely didn't feel that way. And then, like I said, my hat goes off to figurative hat. Goes off to I don't really wear hats, but goes off to Tim Banks.
I do.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
For one reason.
Yeah, but I hear you. But no, he did a good job. Even though like things started breaking open, but it was compound interest effect. Is they were lined up well. We didn't see any like major blown coverages like we've seen the last 3 years with Pruitt. You know, and they just done a good job. They've done a very good job, and they kept them in the game as much as they could, considering the fact that Florida had the ball as much as they did.
Well,
so,
in the second half, and I can't remember where it occurred in the game, Hooker had a guy wide open. We probably would have just been he'd still be running now if he caught that ball. And the game was close at that time.
the tight end, I think it was Warren.
Warren. And but he just sailed it way over his head. I don't know how tall is Hooker? Hendon Hooker, our Tennessee quarterback.
I feel like he's 6'1",
6'4" or so.
6'4".
He's that big?
Yeah, he's about 6. Yeah, he's pretty big.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anything else y'all liked what you saw? Because I would say this for me, I was worried about. It felt like Tennessee Tech was stuffing the run last week, and I was like, man, they're not going to be able to run the ball at all against Florida.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think we ran the ball well against them, particularly in the first
Relatively,
half.
yes.
I love Tyon Evans.
Yes.
Keep him healthy.
Yes.
And Jabari Small, who is small, surprised me. I
Right.
basically just couldn't see him when he was coming through lunch. But those two guys ran hard the whole game. Wouldn't you agree, Kevin?
Yeah, so my takeaway from that is this. We go as the Mays brothers go.
That's
So
right.
it seems like every time Cooper Mays gets either hurt or goes out, that's when the run game suffers. And to be honest, Jerry, I don't think that Cade's really played well this year. He's made some uncharacteristic, undisciplined plays up there.
That's a big penalty. Big penalty he got.
Yep.
At one point
And
in
then-
the second half, I can't remember where it was or what the situation was. I remember it was a big penalty.
It was, I believe it was like 3rd and short or something. It made it 3rd and long, I believe. But
Cooper Mays is playing on one leg, for God's sake.
He is. But Jerry, I know, we never like to say one play cost you the game, but go back to the third quarter. Florida's up by 10. We're moving the ball pretty well on them. It's 4th down. Heupel schemes up the perfect play for that 4th down call, and the receiver just lets it go right through his hands.
Yeah,
He probably would have scored on that play, to be honest with you, based on how the blocking was set up.
Was that Warren? Warren dropped that ball.
No, it wasn't Warren.
This was the one to Callaway.
Yeah, Callaway.
Yeah, Callaway.
It was 4th and 4. He had nobody near him, and he just dropped it. Went right through his hands. And then after that, Florida kind of took over. You could tell it took the wind out of our sails at that point. Momentum is a huge deal in college sports. And once that happened, I kind of said to myself, that's probably it at that point.
The team looks like they have a lot of unity. They really do. I think that's a good point. The Damocles sword hanging over our heads, of course, is the NCAA sanctions. And they're coming. Whenever they come, they're coming.
Yeah, it's going to be.
And that's going to hurt us in recruiting.
Maybe. I feel like it's only going to be one. I feel like it's going to be a tap on the wrist.
Well, before the show, Kevin made a good point, and that is that we're going to have to depend on transfers in this recruiting class. And I don't know where they're going to come from, but I think we need just depth. We need a lot of depth, and I hope we get we got 2 years out of Tyon Evans this year and next. Is that it?
I hope so.
And Small is what
I feel like he's a red shirt. No, he's sophomore, right? Just a true sophomore?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he'll be around, but they need a real stud running back. I keep telling my grandson, who works for the Kansas City Chiefs, and my daughter, who knows more about the Chiefs than he does, that the Chiefs should have drafted Najee Harris, traded up and drafted him. That's the one mistake they have.
Is that it?
Yo, Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled again today.
Man, he's a bad boy. But what about let's go back to the game here. I mean, anything that y'all was unimpressed with or that really bothered you looking at the game was obviously besides the results. I know for me, I was disheartened with the clock management at the end of the first half. I felt like that's the second time.
That's right, and the announcers are all over Heupel about that.
Yeah, that's what I heard about that. But I'm like, man, these timeouts are not gold nuggets. Spend them. I mean, you're going to get 3 more in the second half.
He lost about 13, 14 seconds.
Right, which is, crucial. Get the guy in a manageable, set him up to
gotten closer to the field.
Yes, thank you. Set him up to win, not to just shank one, or I don't know. But that was the second time I seen him do that this year, which is like, man, quit saving the timeouts. Like I said, like they're gold nuggets. Spend them. I mean, that's what they're there for. Kevin, anything that you was really bothered you per se?
Well, I do agree with that. I think Heupel does get caught up in the tempo sometimes, and he lets tempo dictate how he manages the clock a little bit too much. I actually didn't agree with McElroy when he was calling the game, because he said that they should have got up and spiked it. I think they should have actually taken the timeout as soon as the ball was.
That's exactly right.
You spike it, you lose 2 to 3 more seconds. If you call timeout, no time.
And they had 2 timeouts.
Right, and took him to the oh my goodness, I can't even think of the locker room.
Yep.
Oops. The locker room. I just oh yeah, let me get them for you. Go ahead, Kevin. Anything else?
Let's go to Kevin.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is this. I feel like our secondary actually did a really good job of covering them, keeping them from running wide open. I think one of you made the point that we've shown that we play discipline and we don't miss assignments. But one thing is very evident, and Jerry, you've seen a lot of good defensive linemen come to the University of Tennessee. We can't get pressure without blitzes. It's the biggest thing that's killing us right now. We can't get pressure on the quarterback unless somebody blitzes. Nobody's beating anybody one-on-one except for Barron.
I don't know about it. How about this? The scheme. Are we blitzing safeties? I remember Fleo Jackson. Is that his name? Number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've seen a single corner blitz. To your point, I would love to see some secondary blitzes.
Well, that's Theo blitzed several times in the Pitt game and was very effective with it. I don't know where that was against Florida. Maybe they were scared of Emory Jones. I don't know. I mean, when you got a quarterback that's that big of a run threat, that's a real problem. Just ask Nick Saban.
Right. He's going to find out a little bit next week, but let's not get too far. But speaking of that, the stunt scheme that Tim Banks runs is very effective. They run some stunts with just a 4-man pressure, and I feel like it puts stress on the offensive lineman, and I feel like it gets a little bit of pressure. So like I said, I'm impressed.
When stunts, you mean the D-line shifting?
Yeah, well, when they, like, for example, the tackle, he'll cross the face of the guard going towards the tackle, and then the end is coming in. It's stunning in, and kind of like an X. I mean, for the lack of better words, they did that a lot. I think all year, but especially yesterday, and I feel like it was pretty effective when we were fresh in the first half and early third quarter. As time went on, Dan Mullen he took the air out the ball and started pounding it, and things started breaking loose.
But I got to say this, Jesse, if you're going to twist and you're going to rely on your defensive front for pressure, you've got to have a spy for the quarterback, because he got past that pressure several times and there was nobody near him, and he was able to pick up third downs at least 3 or 4 times where it was 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9, where if we get them off the field, that defense doesn't fade in the second half like they did. So if he's going to do that, you got to spy that quarterback, because that's why he had 144 yards of rushing.
Well, number 1. Number 2, he's good. He is really good at that. And he's very shifty, and he's hard to bring down. We had a lot of tackles, arm tackles, where we could have gotten him earlier, but we didn't.
And he he came out, he was the number 1 dual threat quarterback, correct? Kevin, do you remember?
I think right up at the top.
I feel like he was. And he's developed very, very well. I mean, I know that game really made him look like he's made extreme jumps. But he did well against Alabama last week as well. So, I hope they do good. I hope they give Georgia a run for their money for sure. Let me think here. Anything else?
I will say this about upcoming situation.
Okay.
We have to win this Missouri game in order to go to a bowl, in my opinion. Would you agree with me, Kevin?
I think if they don't beat Missouri, you can forget about a bowl.
That's right.
Because
you're looking at 5 and 7 at best then.
I agree, because if you don't beat Missouri, you're probably not beating Kentucky either, because that means you're not very good. If you beat Missouri, then you've got a solid chance at 6-6, which honestly is what they should be targeting right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Missouri, my brother pointed out, who's sitting here watching, my brother Greg Haskey, who knows more than I do, pointed out that Missouri doesn't have a very good defense. And so
who almost beat them yesterday?
They were beaten by Boston College.
Thank you.
That's on the road. That's a tough place to play. Ask Johnny Majors.
I was thinking about Auburn almost getting beat by Georgia State. Did you see that?
That was unbelievable, man.
So
Georgia State,
they're going to bench Bo Nix.
They did. Yeah. What did you say, Kevin? I'm sorry, we kind of skipped out on you.
Georgia State got ripped off in that game, and I agree. Is there a more overrated player in the SEC than Bo Nix? I have yet. He had that one game when he was a freshman, and everybody said he was going to be incredible. And that's the only game I've ever been impressed with him.
Especially, he plays dead on the road.
He does.
Well, I guess we're talking about around the league. What other games really jumped out? Arkansas
Is that
handled.
the lane train?
That's the train moving on by.
Lane train. I wish
That's
we'd
the
have hired
lane
him.
train.
I wish we'd have hired him. We had a chance.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, what about? Did y'all watch the Arkansas Texas A&M game with the C+ coach?
Absolutely. C+ coach. I don't
At
think
best.
He is. No.
Jumbo Fisher?
Oh, yeah.
Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo?
Yeah.
Well, Arkansas is very good, boys. I don't know how they got that good so soon, but if you look at the curve they've had since Pittman came, it's just amazing. And I think they're a real threat to beat Georgia. I'll tell you, the line is, Greg, what's the line on Georgia? 18. The line's 18. You like Arkansas plus 18 at Athens?
Oh, yeah.
I do, too.
I do.
How about Ole Miss plus 17.5 at Bama?
Wow, I like that too.
Yeah, I do too.
I may be getting the parlay this weekend, Jerry.
Greg, what was the other one? You remember?
Well, the other big game next week is going to be Auburn at LSU. Go ahead.
Was it. LSU is 6.5, Greg, something like that. 7. LSU 7.
Does that mean who? Okay, well, let's go ahead and talk about that. Who's going to win that game?
You sure it's at LSU?
That's what I'm looking at. Yes.
Okay.
At the 9 o'clock game.
LSU should win the game.
Okay, Kevin, what you think about that?
Yeah, honestly, they're equally. I don't want to say they're mediocre. I don't think they're either of them are very good football teams, but I think LSU would win at home.
Right. There's something about in the dark, right? Death Valley in the dark is what they said. Of course, UConn plays Vanderbilt. I mean, who really cares about that game?
Go UConn. I hate Vandy. People out there,
do.
you know from the Sport Talk days. And Kevin, you know, you
Yeah.
were Beano. You did the best imitations that anybody ever did. Beano Cook. I really think that.
Think that is what? Go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Pitt and Penn State is the best team in the country.
That's pretty good. You still got
Jesse,
it.
that's before your time, Jesse. You don't know what that means, but Jerry knows exactly what that means.
Beano Cook was, the history of him was with Johnny Majors at Pitt, wasn't he? Wasn't he?
Yes, and he hated Tennessee because they fired Johnny and hired Phil.
That's right. And Beano was a character, and later on ESPN, correct?
Yep, he was.
He was a regular on ESPN. But anyway, getting back to the situation next week, I can't figure if Georgia is just unbeatable or not. What do you think?
I think that Georgia is the second best team in the country right now.
Well,
but the problem with Georgia is, can they score? So the point spread you mentioned, Jerry, that's why I would definitely take Arkansas on the points, because we saw Georgia in that Clemson game. They struggled offensively.
Yeah. And Arkansas has got a really good
It's all
defense.
about safety. Yep. I think that's easy money, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm not a gambling man, so I wouldn't know. So I don't know. But that being said, it's hard. I'm agreeing with you, Kevin. I'm fumbling today. As of yet, yes, they are the second best team in the country, in my opinion, until proven otherwise. If they can be beat, it is because they're not going to be able to score, not necessarily at will, but when they really need to. I don't think that we live in modern day football, man. You cannot rely on your defense to win a national championship. At some point, your offense. Now, granted, I know they scored 62 in a running clock against Vanderbilt yesterday, but that everybody's not Vanderbilt. You're going to have to score 45 points at some point in the season against a very good team. We got a phone call coming in. Brad, do we have any comments? Not as of yet. Okay. Well, let's see. Another Troy at South Carolina. No, nobody really cares.
Good Lord. Get it out of here.
Okay. And then, you talked about the Ole Miss Alabama game. I mean, y'all were talking about taking points, etc. But who's going to win? Yeah. Kevin, who's going to win?
I'm going to have to go with the upset here. I'm going to say Ole Miss pulls the upset. Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, he gives Nick Saban fits every time he plays against him. And, he did it when he was at Tennessee, when, the famous Mount Cody blocked field goals.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because Mount Cody ripped his helmet off while the ball was still in play, spinning around and around and around. That was a horrible non-call.
Yep. Yep. But that's because Daddy Saban he had a conversation with Mr. Mike's Live before that game and said, "You take care of us any chance you get, okay?"
Yeah.
We already knew that. They talk about the 12th man down in Texas A&M, but everybody knows the real 12th man in the SEC is definitely the officiating for Alabama football. It's always been like that. LSU has gotten the raw end of that deal multiple times. We don't have the Patrick Peterson's interception that they called back, et cetera. Never a holding call all season, but yet when they get in the national championship against Clemson, I think they had like 5. So I'm like, okay, how does that happen? But regardless, go ahead.
Well, I want to think that I'm not sure about Bryce Young yet, whether he is the real deal. He's the real deal, but is he the real deal? Is he good as Mac Jones? He's not. What is he? 6'1"?
Yeah, actually, I think he's like 6 foot.
6 foot,
and he's very small. But
that's a disadvantage.
Yes, it is. But to answer your question, he is savvy to me. I feel like he is going to be the best out of the last 4? Best out of the last 4, including him. I mean, he's going to be the best one.
Right now his numbers are looking that way.
Well, I'm just saying, just the way he's smooth. He wants to throw the ball. He doesn't take off running. I mean, one of the commentators was talking about him, comparing him to Russell Wilson, which I don't really like to compare, but he really does. He looks like a Russell Wilson, a young Russell Wilson. He's just savvy. He has the it factor. So I feel like he's the real deal. Kevin, what's your thoughts on that?
I think he is a very good cerebral quarterback, but I will say this. Russell Wilson's about his height, but Russell Wilson's a little bit thicker, and I'm wondering what's going to happen the first time Bryce Young takes a big hit, because he looks really, really slight to me. Like if somebody was to put some weight on top of him, that it might knock him out of the game. Mm-hmm. That's my thoughts on him.
I agree with that.
Right, but until proven otherwise.
But he has no fear, I can tell you that. None.
That's true.
Yeah, he's a bad boy. So did you think Alabama was going to get upset as well? I missed that.
Against Ole Miss? No,
Yeah.
I think they'll pull it out, but I think it'll be close.
Okay. I am going to go. I feel like I'm
a Lane train, man. I'm on the lane. I've been on the Lane train since 2009.
Right.
I'm still on it.
Hey, Jerry, he'll tell you he made a huge mistake
That's
leaving
right.
Tennessee.
Did you see there was an interview in USA Today. It wasn't a Tennessee interview or anything like that. And a question came out of the blue. What if you hadn't gotten the Southern Cal job? He said, I'd still be at Tennessee.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
Well, I'll tell you, not to hate on you, Kevin, but James Hughes has 2 words for you. Come on, Kevin.
What do you mean?
You can't say that if you don't have a reason for it, though.
So we also got Matt Green chiming in. Matt, thanks for sending us some comments. It says, hey, guys, we had a really great first half, but mistakes and penalties killed us. I think you all covered that pretty well. But he says he's very impressed by their performance overall.
I am too. I'm right there with you, Green. I mean, I think that it was. It looked like we halfway knew what we were doing. The defense wasn't over there looking around with their hands up.
They wore us out.
Right. It's just old fundamental football. We're the better team. We're going to take the ball, and y'all can't do nothing about it.
Florida is
nothing.
a very, very good football team. I mean, it was 31-29 against Bama.
Go ahead.
Well,
Brad.
I was going to say the thing that I'm surprised you're not mentioning is we got halfway through the first quarter, and you called it and said time of possession is what's going to decide this game. And really, at the end of the day, that's what it was all about.
It really was. I mean, that was the key factor. And missed opportunities. We covered that too. A couple missed balls. You can't drop balls. You can't have critical penalties at critical moments if you're a team like Tennessee against a team like Florida.
I will say this about Saban teams. They have incredible discipline. Mm-hmm. Incredible discipline. They look like they're into the all the time. They don't make a lot of mistakes at all. Not many stupid penalties, that sort of thing. It's just that system that he's got there. I loved what Shane Beamer said after the Georgia game. interviewed him, and he said, "Hell, he's got 55 stars in the backfield and 100 on the offensive and defensive lines, and 10 at running back and 3 at quarterback." And he's right.
Right.
And that's a big difference. You cannot in this league at this time, you cannot recruit 3 stars. I mean, when we were good in the Fulmer area, when we were good, we didn't recruit these bums. Okay, we had some players who were.
Oh man, Jerry, you
we
can't say
went
that about
after the
our
best,
players.
Man. We went after the best. I helped buy them.
You can't. Oh, okay. Well, you can't say that about our players. Come on now, that's not. But
Jerry
not
didn't
go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Jerry
bought
didn't
Alan
use
Cockrell's
McDonald's
tickets.
bag.
I had Alan Cockrell's tickets on the 50-yard line for 3 years, as long as he was there.
But Jerry, you never handed them a McDonald's bag. You're a little bit more savvy.
That's stupid. That's stupid. As I said on the show before, and on Sport Talk, the satchel is everywhere. As long as it's equal, that's fine. These kids need something. I'm not really sure about these benefits, though, extra benefits for kids. Is it true that Bryce Hunt or
Bryce Young
Bryce
has $1 million
got
yes
$1 million
endorsement.
bucks?
Yes.
What was the endorsement?
I'm not
Something
familiar.
local in Alabama?
I'm not familiar.
Now
who it
Matt
is.
Green has chimed in again. I guess he
Thank you,
disagrees
Matt.
with you a little bit there, Jerry.
What does he say?
Well, he says Alabama has discipline because they have so much depth. Saban will pull his starting O lineman for jumping and can put another 5-star in.
That's correct. That's what I was saying.
The luxury, yes,
The
he does
luxury
have that
having all those
luxury.
5 stars. And what Shane Beamer said about Georgia, they got it too. They're heads of, and they're in states that produce a hell of a lot of football players, and they're both still national brands now. We're not a national brand anymore. I hate
Right.
to say it, we're not.
Well, no, he says Saban can, and he capitalized that, can pull his starters for undisciplinary plays. Now, is that different than the program that we have here in Tennessee?
I mean, I guess we can, but what he's saying is, if you do, I mean, you're just going to get
No, the answer is no.
Yeah, technically, I mean, yeah.
We
If you
don't-
want to try to win the game, is what he's-
We don't have any depth. I don't know about Milton. What do you think about Joe Milton? Is he?
Before we move on, hold on. Let's go. I want to talk a little more about what you're saying now.
All right.
About 3 stars and 4 stars and 5 stars. That being said, last year Arkansas were they 5-5? I can't remember for some reason. I don't look 5-5, 6-4, something like that with not very good talent. Tennessee has more talent than them on paper.
You
This year,
kidding me? No.
This year, yes, on paper, yes, they do, absolutely.
I don't think so.
We'll look it up.
You look at those 2 teams. Arkansas would beat the hell out of us if we played them.
No, I'm not arguing that. I'm saying on paper, if we're talking about stars and who signed and who didn't, Arkansas doesn't have as much talent as Tennessee.
Well,
So what I'm saying is,
we have any 5 stars?
yeah, I think we have like 2, maybe 3. I'll look it up real quick. I have to find. I'm a
You'll
slow.
have to
Cade
You'll have to prove
Cade
that
Mays
to me.
and Darnell Ryder are, I think, the only 2 5-stars we have.
2 or 3, yeah. And so,
That's right.
but what I'm
Right.
saying is, I mean, now Ole Miss has more talent, but they're comparable. I mean, like I said, these teams. What it says to me is it's a special coach, and apparently, Sam Pittman is a special coach because that wasn't just a fluke last year, because they took the momentum that they built last year and have rode it into this year. And even if they lose against Georgia, like Kevin says, I agree, they're the second best team in the country, Georgia. So if you get beat by 14 to 17 points against the second best team, there's no shame in that.
That's right.
But that being said, but to argue,
I don't think Georgia's looking forward to these guys coming in there. I really don't.
I think they are. I mean, if you got, competitive, right? I mean, they're like, we're going to show that Arkansas is not as good as they think they are, and everybody else thinks. I think they're looking forward to it.
Well,
I mean, now maybe the head coach Smart isn't,
it
but
all depends on whether C.J. Jefferson is healthy for Arkansas. It's simply
Yeah.
that.
totally agree.
Now, Derek Bowers has joined the fray.
Thank you, Derek.
Now, he says 71 scholarship players.
Oh, that's right. That's another point.
Yeah.
We
No,
only
that's
have-
very, very, very
We
valid.
only have 70. We have no depth. We only have 71 scholarship players.
Right,
Yeah,
but if,
he said our defense and O-line needed a rest, and they couldn't get it. And then he also said Ole Miss would walk the dog on us.
Well, that's true.
We're gonna look. We're gonna see
He
here in
must
about.
be. He must be on the lane train, Brad.
Yeah.
Some people never jumped off.
I never jumped off. How about you, Kev?
Hey, Jerry, a good point was brought up about depth, because what does depth lead to? It leads to extreme focus in your job.
That's exactly right.
Because if you make a mistake, you know you're going to be replaced. So anybody that has good depth is naturally going to have better focus and better preparation for the games.
Yeah, you should have hosted Sport Talk.
He does a great job. He does a great job. Yeah.
I'm Googling football quotes right now. So
Hey, regardless, you're doing it seamlessly. We can't tell. So, go ahead, Jerry. I'm sorry.
Well, let's talk about recruiting. We're number 11. Tennessee's number 11 in the conference in recruiting. It's probably not going to get much better, if any. It depends on the transfers. And do they grade transfers on the recruiting classes? I can't remember.
they don't include those in the rankings.
Well, it should now. And,
They should. It's a huge
will
part.
everybody, can these guys still transfer from one school to another and not have to sit out?
Correct.
Yes.
Or do they have
Hey,
to
Jerry,
graduate first? What?
Jesse, did you guys see the rule proposal where you can replace up to 6 transfers who leave your program? That would have been nice for Tennessee to have last year, because they could have signed about 31 players if that would have been the case.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't.
There's a rule proposal out there, and they're saying it's probably going to make it through, where if you lose 6 players out of into the transfer portal, you can replace all 6 of those players. So technically, you could sign 25, and then you could also bring in 6 transfers on top of that.
How about 5 transfers? If you had 5.
Yeah, I mean, it
do that
would have
too?
been awesome.
You can replace the transfers, is what you're saying.
You can replace, so if you sign 25 high school or junior college kids, you can replace 6 transfers on top of that. So you could technically bring in 31 new players.
Okay.
That would have been nice for Heupel to have.
Yeah.
It would have. But if wishes were fishes, what does Mario Jefferson? We all have a fry. So my question is.
There's a couple others I can't say on the air.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, by the way, Derek just wanted to let Jerry know that
If a
yes.
frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his butt.
Yeah. Well, Derek Bowers chimed in and said that he wanted to thank Jerry. He goes, "Yeah, he wanted him back. You are right, sir." He's talking about being on the lane train. So.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is. If you look at the year that they had, and a lot of people don't know how that all went down. I can tell you exactly how it went down for him going to Southern Cal. He was at the SEC coaches meetings down in Florida somewhere, and in Orlando, I believe, and he was getting on the Tennessee plane to come back to Knoxville, and he gets this call out of the blue from I forget the guy's name, Southern Cal athletic director, who said, "I'll double your." Kiffin was making $2 million. He said, "I'll pay you $4 million, and I'll give you a 5-year contract, but I got to know now." Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kiffin accepted the job, which was his dream job. Where he screwed up was how he handled the exit.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Matt Green chimed in. He said that he thinks Coach Heupel can bring in some decent recruits.
You really do?
Yeah, he brought UCF up from nothing to top 25.
Now,
Well, who
All
did they
fans
play?
just have to be
All due
patient.
respect, man, who did they play? Okay, did they play anybody really any good? Or maybe 1 or 2 teams at bowl games or something?
Well, what say you, Matt? You have to respond to that now. He's called you out. Now,
Well,
James Hughes chimed in. He says, any chance Bama doesn't win the national championship this year?
Yeah.
Slim to none, but yes, yes, I mean,
Well, all depends on injuries, you know.
right.
Bryce Young would get hurt. They had Paul Bryant, Bear Bryant's great-grandson in there, was number 17. Obviously there because, Paul Jr. has passed away now, but then behind him they had a really good-looking young guy. I can't remember what his name was, true freshman.
Derek has responded to you. He says, from nothing? He followed Scott Frost, who put UCF in that upper echelon.
Thank you. Now, thank you, Derek, for taking the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, Matt, I have to disagree
Scott Frost, where does he coach now?
In Nebraska, and they're not doing good.
How has he not been fired yet?
Well, because that's another thing I guess we can talk about, since we're talking about it in so many words. USC, Florida State's, it's a weird time for college football because you have teams like that who cannot win. Florida State they're out there getting drugged by Wake Forest. USC is not good.
They've been no good since
Nebraska is not the same Nebraska at the beginning. They're not a powerhouse anymore. It's just the times.
They're like us. We're very similar to them.
Has-beens.
Well, what they used to do at Nebraska was they used to have this rule that they could give a scholarship to any kid in every county in Nebraska. So say you had 5 or 6 or 7 offensive linemen you wanted to get in. You could use those scholarships to get those kids. And then you had the rest of them to give everybody else.
Right. I think we lost Kevin. But, the parrot, I see what you're saying. But, here he is. Okay. What's interesting about that is I guess it's all about money and how special the coach is, right? Because, at this point, because how Florida State is not winning in the runs to win the ACC is beyond me. How a team like USC, who has the whole West Coast minus Oregon, is not not going to win the Pac-12 this year, and has only won one in the last 7 years.
Yeah,
it's
UCLA went into Stanford and beat them pretty good.
Right. So it's just go ahead, Kevin. Was you about to say something?
No, sorry, I had connection issues, but I was going to say it's very, very hard in these times to come back from the bottom.
That's right.
Because Jerry, if you remember back in the day, even in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was really easy for a coach to come in brand new and say, I want you to be a part of something special. I want you to be a part of something being rebuilt and brought back from nothing. The problem is, you do that now, the way this generation of kids is, these kids want instant glory. They want instant satisfaction wherever they go. So for them, it's a lot easier to go to Bama or Georgia or Clemson or Oklahoma now, because they see it as, well, I can get a ring there for sure. I don't know if I'll ever get a ring at Tennessee, so why would I go there?
Yeah, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country, maybe top 3, was Ty Simpson in Martin, Tennessee, West Tennessee, and of course he signed with Bama. He's a 5-star, and we missed on that. Well, I wouldn't expect us to get him. Why should he come to Tennessee? Unless he just got orange in his blood, like we do.
To Kevin's point, I agree. But to counter that point, though, Kevin, how's Iowa State winning ball games, winning more than USC? How's a team like Iowa? They could very well win the Big Ten this year. So what's interesting about that is we say all that. It's just, I don't know. It's just a bizarre time that we're living in as far as the national, period, but also in college football.
I'll tell you a team that's, to me, is overrated is Iowa.
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
They're big, white, and slow.
But I tell you, them big, white, slow boys can play some football, man, because you know why they was putting that.
Who have they beaten besides Iowa State that's any good?
I see what you're saying, but if they play Ohio State, I feel like they beat them. I I just like the way they play football.
I think they may play this year. I'm not sure.
I feel like they will.
Derek wants to chime in before you guys get too far off of the Iowa thing.
Thank you.
He goes, Scott Frost is getting a pass so far because 2 things. Tom Osborne asked him to come home, and he won the NC and Heisman at Nebraska. They do not want to cut him early.
Right. And why would you do? You got to give.
Been there 5 years, hasn't he now?
No. I think it's 4. This is his 4th year at best.
Heupel was at UCF for 3 years.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So if Heupel was at Central Florida, that would be Heupel's 4th year. So that's when Frost left to go to Nebraska. So this is his 4th year.
But Heupel,
either way, he's not showing any improvement.
No.
Well, he says exactly. We in the LeBron team era of athletes. Kids don't want to go beat Bama. Kids want
100%.
Kids want to team up.
That's right.
Yep, it's 100% true.
Even though these 5-stars come in with other 5-stars who are underclassmen there.
Yes. Yep. Saban is the ultimate salesman too. He'll tell them this is good for you.
Yeah, you go to the big. You go to the league. You go to the big league, NFL.
Jerry Saban was right. I listened to something he said the other day, and he's been against this transfer portal for a long time. At first, I thought it was because he didn't want to lose his depth to other schools, but that's actually not the case. The Oklahomas and the Bamas and the Georgias, they're getting the best players from the bad schools to come there. So whoever they lose.
Like Eric Gray, our
Exactly.
Eric Gray at Oklahoma.
And what's interesting about that is Oklahoma looks very beatable this year.
I agree with that.
So I mean, it all doesn't mean a hill of beans to me until they get on the field and win. Because Eric Gray, I have to say, I did feel like
well,
good for
he
him.
was one of the guys that got the big cash in the McDonald's bag, apparently.
Right. But I mean, it's not.
And he's probably getting some in a more secure way out there in Oklahoma. These guys don't come for free, let me tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, I tell you, I don't have anything else to talk about, really. I mean, we've already covered who we think is going to win the games next week. Anything else that y'all want to talk about?
Well, Matt Green chimed in. He goes, with
Thank you,
players
Matt.
getting endorsements and whatnot, it'll definitely be harder to recruit.
I agree with that because unless you have some local, if the Haslams wanted to pay some kid to come to Tennessee,
Yeah.
they could do that. So could
Now,
so could Charlie Anderson. Haslams are billionaires, Pilot Oil, and you got Charlie Anderson, biggest magazine dealer, newspaper dealer in the world. You got him there, and you got the guy that's head of Dish Network who founded it. He's worth about $11 billion. Then you got the guy that invented the GPS, who came out with the Garmin, who was a Tennessee grad. So you got a lot of people with big money there.
So,
that
Jerry,
could
I guess
do-
a
that
question-
could lay some money on these
I was going
kids.
to say, so you need to get on the phone with your friends here and have them lay some money out and get us some players so we can get a national championship.
Well,
again.
I can tell you this: we bought Willie Galt. I could even go in if you want me to go into the nitty gritty. I could do that. When
We like
we had
nitty-gritty.
good players, we bought them. And I'm not saying they wouldn't have gone. Maybe our bid was just higher than somebody else's.
We bought T. Martin too.
Yes, we did. That was Rodney Garner, who's on our staff now.
Yeah.
That's amazing, You think
Yeah.
of the guys he recruited. We wouldn't have won a national championship without Rodney Garner. And Fulmer was he was upset because Rodney was getting so much attention and so much praise and everything, and he just let him go. When Donovan at Georgia made him an offer, Fulmer wouldn't match it.
Hey, Jerry, let me ask you this question. Would you agree with this theoretical point? Tennessee football will not be back until Haslam says, you know what? Whoever the AD is at this time when this happens, I'm hoping it's Danny White because that means he's the right one.
Yeah.
But he's going to go to Danny White one day and say, Danny, I know we've made some bad decisions. We've not made the right hires. Here's $30 million. You go hire the absolute best coaches you can. Oh, by the way, here's another $30 million for you to upgrade Neyland Stadium. Because I don't see how we're going to raise money to stay competitive with the facilities if we're not winning games.
Well,
and getting
Haslam has given the university, Haslam family has given the university over $100 million.
I believe it.
And the Haslam business building is College of Business is a shining star. It's competitive with anybody in the country because of that money. They can have the best people. So that's on the academic side. There's no reason why he couldn't do it on the athletic side. Hell, he was the captain of the team and won the national championship in 1951. So, and there are other people who could do the same thing. And
It's disappointing, honestly, the amount of involvement of the Dish Network guy.
yeah.
He really doesn't seem to interject himself in any of these things.
Well,
and
he was a
big-
big Heath Schuler fan. You have to understand that. Yeah.
Mm.
We were interviewing Heath, if you recall, when he was in high school.
Yep.
And Charlie Ergen was a big Heath Schuler fan, and I think he kind of backed off after that.
All interesting.
Now, I don't know what this means, but Derek chimed in and goes, go fund me for Arch Manning.
Arch, man, I'm telling you, could this kid be that good? Lane Kiffin. Here's what Lane did. Lane Kiffin, and God bless him, erases all his thousands of Instagram followers, and the only one he has now is Arch Manning.
Is that what he's done?
Yeah,
That's news to me.
He's
Thank
following
you.
Arch Manning, nobody else.
Okay.
I mean, the guy's, it may be bizarre, but he's pretty effective. I really believe Arch Manning will wind up at Ole Miss if Kiffin.
I feel like I heard LSU was the favorite.
Oh, why?
Why not? He's a Louisiana boy, right?
Yep, they're not doing that well.
Well, I mean, and plus he wants to go write his own legacy. His daddy went to Ole Miss. His uncle went to Ole Miss. His
Well,
other uncle went to Tennessee. I'm gonna go to LSU.
He'll give Tennessee a courtesy visit because of Peyton, but I don't think he'll go with us.
Right.
I hope he goes to Tulane. It's about time Tulane made it back onto the national map.
I like the Wave. The Wave almost beat Oklahoma on the road.
But
That's true.
everybody
Plays
knows.
pretty good.
How's the song go, Brad?
Almost doesn't count.
Almost doesn't count. That's right. Almost made you. Yeah. So anyway, it was a Brandy song.
Close is only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes.
That's what they say. Yeah. Don't eat a hill of beans in football. A hill of beans. Well,
I can't help it.
Kevin, you got anything else you want to say on the closing out?
I'm going to piggyback off that. How many times in the last 15 years have we said, oh, we almost did that, or we were this close if we would have done this? But it just comes down to the fact we haven't been good.
We haven't been good. But yeah, here we are, wasted.
Let me make one other point. Let's go back in history.
Go back in history.
When Philip Fulmer became head coach of Tennessee in 1992, after Johnny basically fired himself, and Bill Johnson, none of these guys were instrumental in firing Johnny Majors. Johnny Majors fired himself. He could, if he'd sat out the entire year, which he was supposed to do, he'd had quintuple bypass. He couldn't stand Fulmer's success early, and so he winds up with coming back at the fourth game, after the fourth game, before the fourth game, Cincinnati or something like that, and he does a thing in the press box. Fulmer's coaching the team. He's not doing anything, but he comes down to greet the other coach. Now, he basically could not understand why he couldn't come back, and it was a shame because he was, my boyhood hero at Tennessee. But coming back to this, when Fulmer took over, think of this: everybody in the SEC but Florida was down. Just go count them all around. Bama was down. Georgia was down. Spurrier was one. Of course, he never could beat Spurrier. Did we ever beat Spurrier under Fulmer? Yes, we did.
Yes.
His first year.
98
Oh,
and 2001 too.
Remember they went down to?
Beat
Yeah.
him in 1992 also with Heath Schuler.
Right. Actually, my brother was on that team.
Was Fulmer was coaching that game though, right?
Yeah.
That was the heart attack year.
Yeah,
Or the heart
it was
surgery.
early in the season, and we beat the hell out of Spurrier in Knoxville. It rained whole second half. But Schuler, I remember I asked Heath at an interview in 1998 when he was representing Sprint. They opened an office here in Chattanooga, and my first question was, I said, Heath, what were your true height and weight when you played at Tennessee your last year, your junior year? He immediately said 6'3" and a half and 241, and no linebacker wanted any part of me. And he said, oh, I still ran a 4.5 40. And he was a freak athlete. You wonder about what if he'd stayed that next year. He was second in the Heisman to Charlie Ward in his junior year. So I think it's just a situation now where we're not getting those kind of people. And Fulmer was a really good recruiter, and he had he had a satchel, but everybody did too. Everybody else did too. But he could bring in really high quality players.
But you just said a great point though. When he did get the Tennessee job, Georgia was down, South Carolina, so
That's
they were
right.
going.
That's my
Louisiana
point.
was non-existent.
It was much easier for him
to go
win.
get the best players in the Southeast.
Yes, and he would poach to Georgia, Alabama, Rodney Garner,
Louisiana,
go down to Alabama, and
Mississippi.
get Cozy Coleman, T. Martin, and all those guys.
Right. Right. Well, you can't do that anymore. But
That's
like
right.
we've talked
And
about,
that's the problem. We never were other than in the General Neyland years, the years of early white football, we were never the dominant team.
Right. Well, my thing is, I feel like in order for Tennessee to succeed now, you really have to do what every other state has done, is put a fence around your state.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Tennessee has got to find a way to keep the top talent in Tennessee.
As we talked about.
In North Georgia and in certain parts of North Carolina. Man, they need to come to Tennessee. They're only 2-3 hours away from Neyland Stadium.
We used to own Dalton.
Right.
I think Bill Mayo and all those guys.
Right. So that
Ricky
means
Townsend. So
I don't really think. I mean, my thing is let's do what everybody else is doing. Just get the best players in your state, and we're going to have a lot of talent and obviously a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride that comes, I would think, of your hometown, right, or your home state. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. We got to
win. We got to win football games before we're going to get there. It's a, what do you call that?
Catch-22, maybe?
Catch-22, that's exactly right.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, I am. Boy, I'll stick around you, I'll be all right.
Nah, nothing like that.
I'm 81. Give me a chance.
Well, that's all right. But, I mean...
Here's my hot take, Jesse. I got a hot take.
Give it to
Tennessee needs to beat Kentucky this year. Badly.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're beating Ole Miss, and they're obviously not beating Bama. I think Kentucky is that game where they really need to beat them and kind of use that as a sales point, right?
Yeah.
Kentucky Stoops gets a lot of hype as being a great coach. So if Heupel can beat him, he'll say, well, I beat him in year one, and now he can go on the recruiting trail. He already lost some in-state recruits to Kentucky this year that he wanted.
Linebackers, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Wade twins, I believe they were.
Well, I know one of them was a linebacker, yes.
And so he needs to beat Kentucky. I think that would be a good start. And then next year, maybe he can pull off another good win. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm circling the Kentucky game on my calendar.
So you're saying that's going to be the signature win?
That's
beating Kentucky is the signature win
to get us to 5-7.
To
get us to 5-7.
Well,
we have to win that game.
Yeah, and thank you. We got to beat Missouri, and both of those teams are beatable. I mean, let's not forget that Kentucky almost got beat by Chattanooga. We know that, right?
We know we're going to win 4. The Pitt game was a big game.
Yeah, it was. That was bad.
And whatever, but we're going to beat the 3 cupcakes, and including South Alabama on down the line, and we're going to beat Candy. So that's 4 games we know we're going to win. Now, if we lose to Candy, they ought to fire everybody up there.
Yeah, I agree.
Eliminate football. It's the worst team I've ever seen.
Well, you know what? You're right, because Vanderbilt is terrible.
How did they go out and beat Colorado State? And Colorado State almost beat Iowa at home.
This is the worst Vandy team I've seen since like the Woody Weidenhofer years. I mean,
they were better. Woody was better than this bunch.
Yeah, I agree.
They ain't got anybody.
You know what? I'm still in another.
I hate Vandy. I love it. I hate them.
I don't even know why is it. Why do you hate Vandy? Did you make bad grades or something?
Who do you hate the most, Jesse? What other teams? Who do you hate the most?
You know what? As I've gotten older, I don't hate anybody.
No,
really.
don't give me that stuff. Okay. All right, Kevin.
I try to love big, man.
Who do you hate? Who do you hate, Kevin?
Man, you know what? I was raised to dislike Alabama. Yeah. It's gone from a pure hatred to more of a respect, to be honest with you.
I agree with that with Alabama.
I cannot stand Kirby Smart.
I
hate the way he looks. He's smug in his interviews. Yeah. And honestly, I think he squanders talent. He is way too talented to lose the games that he lost last year.
There's no question about it.
So, if y'all are going that route, I was going to say there's certain fans I can't stand. Like you said, you mentioned smug, Kevin. Man, the smug Alabama fans, the smug Georgia fans, not all of them. But
there was a time when we beat Alabama 7 straight times under Fulmer. Is that not right, Kevin?
That is correct. And we choked on 8 in a row.
That's exactly right. I remember. Oh God, don't even get me into that.
Right. So I mean, I don't necessarily hate any team. But as far as the way fans walk around,
you don't hate Vandy.
Why would I hate Vandy? They're irrelevant to me. I mean, I like their hospital.
I know why Jerry doesn't like Vandy, because they are those fans. They have even an ounce of success, even if it's the smallest little bit of success.
Yeah.
That high and mighty chin, it goes up really high, and that's how they act. They are so smug when they win.
At the Georgia Vandy game, there were 90% of the crowd was Georgia fans.
So I mean, are they supposed to apologize
Just like
when
it
they
is
do
with
have a
us.
little bit of success? I guess that's where I'm confused.
I hate them. I've always hated them. They were good back in the Johnny Majors days, or back in the Hank Larcella days. That's in the 50s.
Well, yeah, Swanee was good.
They had Bill Wade and
Swanee.
so forth. Bandy was good in the days of white football.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, Swanee was good back in what 1904 or something. Didn't they win a national championship up there on that mountain sometime?
They
at
were
some
an
point?
original member of the SEC.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So I mean, you know, but
whole different ball game now.
I don't know, man. I mean, I appreciate what Vanderbilt does in the line of academics and medicine and blah blah blah. And hey, and they're a victory for us 90% of the time, right?
Yeah.
Unless Franklin is coaching the team
They
there.
don't belong, Jesse. They don't belong.
Now that's another conversation. That's another
They belong in
conversation.
the ACC. They belong right beside Duke. They just need to hold each other's hand.
One of
and go
my
through
one of my
together.
favorite experiences. We beat Vandy 7 in a row under Coach Ray Mears, the great Ray Mears, at Nashville, and I was there for every one of them behind the Tennessee bench when Coach Mears would take his walk, and they would boo him and boo him and boo him, and then he'd go out there and beat them, and then they tried to reverse psychology. And they gave him a standing ovation. I'm sitting next to John Ward behind the Tennessee bench. Now, he's walking from one end of the court down to the Tennessee bench. The bench is on the end at Vanderbilt. And Ward says, you know, that's probably the first standing ovation Mears has ever gotten anywhere. And he loved it. And they beat him again. You know, it didn't work.
Right.
Derek wants to chime in. He said he agrees
Derek,
on all
thank you.
accounts. He goes, Bama was the most hated, but now it's just meh. Georgia fans have arrogance of Bama fans with Vandy's trophy case. he says, Lordy, Lordy.
How many national championships, you dog fans out there, how many national championships have you won?
He goes, Lordy, Lordy, Georgia's national championship is 40.
One. Uno.
20 years ago.
Uno, 1980. And we fumbled the ball on the 1.5 yard line, or dropped the ball. Glenn Ford was going in for the winning touchdown Herschel's freshman year when he had the big comeback. And then the 94-yard pass to Lindsey Scott, run Lindsey, run Lindsey, run Lindsey.
Oh God.
But see, the thing about that is, again, to be a contrarian, which is what me and Brad like to be sometimes.
That's fine.
Tennessee had that situation too against Arkansas when the guy just laid it.
That's true.
So you know that happens for
He
most.
could have taken a knee.
That's what I'm saying.
And we don't play for the national
That's what
team.
I'm saying.
We
So-
were actually lucky because we had to have certain. UCLA had to lose. Texas A&M had to beat. I think Texas A&M beat somebody.
They beat we talked about this before, Kansas State in the Big 12.
Kansas State was ahead of us, even though we were undefeated. So we got in there.
So I mean that happens to a lot of national championship teams. There's only been a couple times, like I feel like LSU, they had a little bit of a scare a couple years. The last one they won against Auburn, but for the most
was
part
the
they
best
just ran
team.
through. Go ahead, Kevin.
That was top 3 best teams I've ever seen since I've been alive.
Of all
That-
time, yeah, I can't disagree.
What would you say?
LSU.
I said
LSU,
that LSU
Joe
team with Joe
Burrow.
Burrow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I can't argue that.
And what's the other two?
Yeah, that's good.
Man, you know, it's going to be one of Saban's team. The year they who was on their team? They had Dante Hightower.
Oh, good God.
I'm trying to think of who their quarterback
You
was.
talking
I think AJ McCarron.
Yeah.
You talking about the
There
year
was
that
a
they
team
gave?
Bama they had like 7 or 8 first-round picks off of it, and I can't remember which year it was, but that was the best defensive team I've ever seen. Was that Bama team?
Oh, by the way, there's a new thing on SEC Storied on the SEC network on the voices, the broadcasters, the great broadcasters in the SEC. John Ward, Larry Munson, Mick Hubert, Florida, like Eli Gold at Bama. I could go on and on. It's going to be good. I taped it. It's running at 7 o'clock tonight.
Oh, okay, but dang, I lost my thought.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Thanks for reminding me, though, Jerry.
What?
Thanks for reminding me.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we
That's
are right.
gonna be-
That'll be a good show. I mean, I remember, I'll say this one thing, and people out there like to know these little things. When John Ward was Larry Munson was in the booth with us, and John Ward was in Knoxville on the phone, and the two of them are on together, and it was great radio. I don't know if you remember that show or not. And I asked a question to, in effect, both of them. Who do each of you think is the best announcer in college football? And Ward said quickly, that's easy, it's Munson. Why? because he's the only guy that can call a football game, as it happens. The rest of us are 2 or 3 seconds behind. Interesting, true story. And Munson said, Hawk, that was John Howard's nickname, his middle name. I think you may be right about that. They both laughed because they were great friends.
Sounds good. Sound good. Well, Mr. Haskell or Jerry, we want to thank you so much
Thanks for
taking.
calling me Jerry. I'm not that old.
Okay, all right.
I always enjoy coming up here and visiting with you guys and Brad and everybody out there in TV land or Facebook land.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Facebook land, right.
It's nice to share the stage with you, Kevin.
Thank you.
You're good, man.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday, 6:30.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go Vols.
There's gonna be a ball. They'll swing those pretty girls.